Jason, how's things?
How are you, pal? All good this end. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So I just want to, Liverpool win the league after 30 years. How did you celebrate? Where were you? What do you remember?
Well, funny enough, we'd done the game before Chelsea played Manchester City. And I was asked, I think we were playing City after they played Chelsea. And I was asked the question, would you like Chelsea to do us a favour, or would you like Liverpool to turn City over and win it that way? And I actually said I'd like to see Liverpool win it themselves. The players being on the pitch, all right, in adverse conditions, but to be on the pitch, win the game, celebrate, would have been a fitting way. But it wasn't to be. Chelsea done us a favour. As you know, Willian scored the winner. And I was actually sitting in my garden, because if you remember, we were having a bit of a nice spell of weather, weren't we? So I was sitting in the garden. It was about, I don't know what time would that have been, about 9:30, 9:45. So I cracked open a nice bottle of Barolo to celebrate, necked it, didn't let it breathe, as you should, and celebrated by doing a couple of TV shows and a couple of radio shows. So it was very nice.
And do you think, obviously, after Liverpool had won the league, with Chelsea getting the result, then playing Man City next, and then obviously, we both know Man City ended up beating them. Do you think it took anything away from winning the title?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I defended them quite a lot at the time because, obviously social media, we're all cranked up that we were, we didn't do ourselves any justice or cover ourselves in any glory by beating City. They were the better team. It was a really poor result, poor performance. But, as the lads, even tonight, the lads you've got on tonight, will tell you, win something, you need to savour it, because it's them memories that bring you back. It's them memories that create a hunger, a desire to win things again. When you're out there and you play as a team and your teammates and the camaraderie and the team spirit that you've got, it's all part of winning things and success. And the lads, I know for a fact that had a couple of nights, they were in a bubble in a hotel in just outside Liverpool. They went back and they celebrated as they should. Jurgen's very much one for letting the lads enjoy themselves when they get over the line in anything that they do and bring success. And it was just the wrong game to play. Manchester City outfit, they were still in the Champions League. They still had a point to prove. It was always going to be a difficult night for Liverpool under the circumstances. And you've just got to give it to them. It just didn't happen for them on the night. Training was disrupted. They'd done a lot of interviews and, Jurgen couldn't get on the training ground to do any sort of preparation for the City game. And they just kind of winged it and got caught, probably still celebrating, still with a sore head. And that's how it panned out. But I wouldn't take anything away from the achievements of Liverpool. They were fantastic all season. They can't be judged on one game against City.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's almost as if it had built up for so long, the expectation of winning it. And it was kind of like, when are they going to win it? That when Chelsea got the result, they had won. It's kind of like, the pressure's off. We've won it now. Like, we can enjoy these few days. But then, of course, it just,
absolutely,
the way it fell, they played Man City next, which was a tough game,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, as elite sport, we train to win, don't we? We do everything in our power to win, and there has to be a motivation for us. The motivation, and I can speak for all the lads. Some might question different attitudes, but all the lads you've got on tonight, motivation is winning football matches, is winning trophies, and trying to win Premier Leagues or Scottish Leagues, whatever it may be. That's what we train for every day, and that's what we try to do. You take the motivation away, having achieved something so big after 30 years, sometimes you just take your eye off the ball. Sometimes, you can't play against Manchester City at 85%. You've got to play at 100% to match them. They are one of the greatest teams in the world at the minute. You can't take that away from them. And they just done a job on Liverpool, unfortunately, that night. But, you've got to look at Liverpool over the last 4 years. They've been tremendous under Jurgen Klopp.
No, they have. Now, I just want to touch on, the Premier League fixtures are now out. Liverpool have got Leeds, Chelsea and Arsenal the first couple of games. Do you think they can go and win the Premier League again? So go back to back?
Yeah, the achievement Pep did with Manchester City was phenomenal, to go back to back. It's changed now from what I think what you're seeing in the sort of the 80s and the 90s. Dominance is a very, very difficult thing. Teams now are venturing into the transfer market, paying, certainly the top six, and the top European sides are paying 100 million, 100 plus, for top players, and they get that. It might be slightly different this time around because of the pandemic and stuff and resources with clubs, but there's still money there to be spent. I think to do it again, Chelsea have bought really, really well. I like what Frank's done there. They brought in some good young players, good experience in that squad as well. So I think they'll be asking questions this season. I think United, under the experience they've had with Ollie the last years, Greenwood coming through, Rashford, good young players again with that sprinkling of experience. I think they'll expect more next season. City, I worry for City. Again, going out of the Champions League, Pep's desire and hunger and attitude has been there for the last 2 or 3 seasons, but can they go again? Aguero in his last season, De Bruyne are unhappy. They've lost Silva. Company went last season. They've still got questions to ask at the back and buy players. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the transfer market. Plus, they've, had less time off than the other teams. I'd certainly put Liverpool in the driving seat, mate. I certainly would still put them favourites. They haven't ventured into the transfer market. All right, Tsimikas has come in as a replacement or sort of a backup to Robertson, but no big signings have come in, as you know. He'll go with the squad they've got. It's just, I think it's important to start. You've mentioned the games there. I think 2 very important games, Chelsea and Arsenal, to try and take points off them early will do wonders for confidence. But you just look at Liverpool's last 4 games, Palace, West Brom. I wrote it down here, Palace, West Brom, can't find it. Burnley and Southampton. They might be Big 12 points at the end of the season. Yeah. So it's a nice run-in for them. But as you know, hopefully you don't want to take it to the last game of the season because anything can happen.
Oh, no, you're spot on there. Now you touched on, obviously the other clubs in the kind of inverted commas top 6, signing players. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp has come out and said that we're not going to, buy loads and loads of players. Now, the big question then is he's expecting a lot of the young fellas to step up. Now, you're in and around Liverpool. What do you think? Can these young players step up? Now, it's going to be very difficult for them to break into the starting 11, but do you think that they can be, the 13th, 14th, 15th man that can come on and impact games when, the front 3 are not firing or something needs something different?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what we've seen over the last 12 months is Jurgen certainly now found his ideal 11, his starting 11. We can probably pick that. Apart from maybe 1 or 2 in that midfield, you could probably pick the rest week in, week out. But, there's a lot of games to be played this season in a very short space of time. I think it's 10 days less this season, or a week less, isn't it, than what we usually get as a timescale to fulfil the fixtures. And plus Liverpool want to go again in the Champions League. FA Cup might be an importance this year. We'll have to wait and see. But as far as the youngsters yet, Liverpool have got some great youngsters who Jurgen's has bedded in really, really well. He's picked and chosen his games to play them. Young Nico Williams has come in. Yeah, he's not going to displace Trent by no means, but he's certainly a good backup for him. Quite versatile as well. Obviously, you've got Curtis Jones, who's, you could slot in there for 20, 25 minutes if needs be. But the big one for me is Ryan Brewster. Beginning of last season, I went away on tour with the lads in America. Ryan started the pre-season really well and got the opportunity because there was a lot of lads away from the club being on international duty. They were having a prolonged break. So Ryan got his opportunity. It was when we went to America, I started questioning, whether he could step up. And, we played against Sporting Lisbon. We played against Borussia Dortmund. He found it quite tough, to be honest. And it was big expectations. He was coming back from a big injury, but big expectations that really at that time he wasn't fulfilling. And Jurgen let him go out to Swansea. He scored 11 and 22. And come back with a bit of a swagger, I must admit. He's gone away to Evian, and I believe he's training really, really well. And I kind of think he's now stepped a little bit ahead of Divock Origi, which might raise some eyebrows. But I think he's ready to slot in, as you said, to give a bit of rest to the front 3 that usually pick themselves. And you can rely on him probably for, again, 20, 25 minutes. I wouldn't say any of these youngsters are pushing for starts. Curtis may be the one you look at. You could probably start for 90 minutes. But yeah, there's plenty of talent coming through, and obviously we've got Harvey Elliott, who is, I'm telling you now, is going to be an absolute superstar. He's 17. What an attitude! What a player! You know, I can actually see him. He's playing wide at the minute, but I can see him slotting into that midfield central area, maybe as a Xavi or an Iniesta. And I think if he develops the right way, I'm going to put my head on the line here. I could say he could be as good as one of them players, and that's saying something. This kid's got the lot.
That's a very, very big statement to come out with. Obviously, we've seen him in times, you know, in the League Cup when he played against Aston Villa. Obviously, Jurgen made that decision not to, you know, to give the first 11 or the first 13, 14 a rest when they went away for the Club World Cup. He did show great signs, but, you know, for someone who's kind of played the more advanced role, it's easy for a wide right or a wide left to tuck into the middle. I know you've done it yourself at times, but for someone who's more threatening in the goal and is like looking to really create, do you really think he could, you know, go back and then like get an understanding of the role? If you look at, you know, someone like Jordan Henderson, I played with Jordan early days in his Sunderland career, who played wide right or a 10. And even when he went to Liverpool, it took him a long time to actually get an understanding of the defensive midfielder positioning. I know you're not saying for Harvey to go that deep, but at the same time, when he played in the two Fabinho was holding, the kind of almost, you have to be aware that you're going to have to, you know, run back. Nowadays, you know, midfielders are up and down the pitch for 90 minutes. Does he have that defensive mindset, you know, to switch?
Yeah, I think, Dave, we're talking about a 17-year-old here who is still developing, and I totally agree with what you're saying. A lot of players under Jurgen have found it difficult at times. You know, Robertson has found it difficult. You know, when he first comes to the club, Fabinho as well, they kind of get dropped in, they get taken out, they train, they go back in, and they stay in their position, and we're bearing the fruits of that now. Harvey Elliott has been around the club now for probably 18 months. What I've seen of him, and again, I'll reiterate, I think he's an absolute superstar. He can play both feet. He sees things. He does play on the wide, so he's protected a little bit as from playing in the middle where you're a bit more in the limelight. But what I actually see is I always think you need options. And as you know, Liverpool have played with Wijnaldum there. Fabinho will play there more often than not. And we've seen Jordan slot in there. Is that holding midfielder who breaks things up and then, you know, we'll go forward, give it to the players who can, you know, do things, who can make things happen, the front three, or Jordan if he's playing right, Wijnaldum, or Shaqiri if he plays, or whoever that may be. What I see Harvey Elliott doing is playing, and Jurgen tried it actually against Lyon in pre-season in Switzerland last year, was he tried Lallana as a sitting, holding player, but more creative. Wasn't in there to break things up, wasn't in there to help with the press. He just sat there, turned the ball over, little passes, 1-2, was on the ball 3 or 4 seconds, bang, 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 giving it to Salah, giving it to Mane, whoever it may be in front of him, and saying, go on, you go and do your stuff. Harvey Elliott has got that ability to see things, to open things up, to play that little killer pass. What I love about him, mate, he never spends longer than 4 or 5 seconds on the ball. He never spends that amount of time on the ball. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he sees beforehand, and his execution, you know, more often than not, is on point. He's going to be an absolute, I keep saying it, because, I mean, the lads will tell you, they come around every once in a while. I had the privilege of playing with Owen, the privilege of playing with Fowler. I've seen Rooney at a young age being on Merseyside. I put him in them brackets, mate. Wiltshire, seeing him in the Youth Cup final against Liverpool, destroy him when he was 17. He's in that bracket. He's in that bracket, absolutely.
Well, at least if he watches this, he'll know he's got Jason McAteer's back. And another one you touched on, obviously, was Nico Williams, right? If he was to obviously fulfill his potential and, you know, take over that, you know, right back spot, there has been talks about Trent playing in the middle of midfield. How do you feel about that? What do you think?
No, well, Trent started as a young midfielder, central in the academy. He came through, as you know, he's been there as a kid, and that's where he predominantly played. It was only Jurgen decided to shift him over, play him a few games in the 23s, and he got his opportunity. Klein got injured, and he took it, to be honest. Why move the best right back in the world into midfield? Why do that? You know, he offers so much in that role. And as you know, I've seen you plenty of times at Anfield, Liverpool's key areas are wide. You know, these two, Robertson and Trent, you know, they do so much damage going forward. The recovery is very good. They can get back into position because they've got the pace and the fitness. But Trent's ability to change the play from one side to the other, to pick out his crossing. I mean, I'm a big fan of crossing. I know that Chris Sutton will say, you know, centre forwards deserve all the credit they get by putting in the back of the net. But sometimes when you're putting buffet balls in, you know, the wingers and the fullbacks need more credit. I'm telling you. So, and he can put a buffet ball in, mate. I'm telling you. Trent is, you know, from set pieces, we've got a free kick taker around the box who's deadly. But from wide areas, he puts so much quality into the box that the front three are just getting opportunities all the time. Why move him? Why move him into a central area?
No, I completely agree with you. For me, he's the best right back at going forward. There are times he slightly needs to improve his defensive qualities. Yeah. I think you'd probably pick Robertson over him just because he can go forward, but he can also defend. If I was to, I'm probably a bit loyal because I played with Andy at Hull, but you know, he just seems to have that little bit more Robertson at defending than Trent does at times. He does get caught a little bit too far forward, but when you've got Joe Gomez, Virgil, you know, and obviously the keeper, you look at that back four, it's exceptional.
I think you're right there. I think defensively, I think Robbo is more astute. He's more wary of his defensive duties than what, you know, Trent will be. But, you know, I think what we've seen, you know, in the Premier League, you know, there's a lack of quality centre-halves. I think Man City could do with a couple. You know, I think pace is a massive key now to playing centre-half. You know, Joe and Virgil have got bags of pace. They're striking up a great relationship, even when Matip plays. You know, pace can get you out of so much trouble, and it's no coincidence. Liverpool have had the best defensive record in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons. Again, you know, they finished top of the charts in that area. So I certainly think defensively, I think we can, you know, we can sort of put up with Trent being out of position and slightly taking his eye off his defensive duties if he's going to, you know, create 16, 17, 18 assists a season from that area. You know, I know how tough it is, you know, to create assists from that area. And when they're doing it, the two of them from either side, you know, on a continual basis, you know, why change it?
No, I completely agree with you. I just want to, you know, bring up obviously Jurgen Klopp. It's very easy for everyone on the outside to see the impact he's had on, you know, on the team. Obviously, they've had great success, as we spoke about, winning the Premier League, the Champions League. Obviously, they lost the Champions League the year before to Real. I want to get your insight to, you know, Jurgen Klopp around the club. You know, the people that he deals with day to day, and what he's influenced and what he's changed around the place.
I think, you know, from when he first came in, you know, he lifted the club instantly. You know, we were coming off the back of Brendan, who, you know, I'm not taking anything away from Brendan. A second place finish in the Premier League is fantastic. But I always felt, you know, Brendan being young, I always felt there was an ego with Brendan, that he built Liverpool's foundations on moving forward. On sand, I felt. I never felt there was a longevity in what Brendan was trying to do. It is difficult for managers, you know, they've got to bring success now. But I always felt in being young, Liverpool were going to give him the opportunity to progress. They were always maybe on the sort of thinking, we'll let Brendan take maybe a step backwards to go 3 forwards. But it didn't quite work out for Brendan. When Jurgen come in, I just felt this instant lift. I felt, you know, the foundations were being put down, maybe a concrete foundations. He never taught Liverpool up too much about what he was going to do. Yeah, he said he wanted to win the Premier League within 3 or 4 seasons, but, you know, every manager does that. But he just quietly went about his business. He ventured into the transfer market very astutely, spent his money wisely, and I think you'll agree, you know, apart from probably Karius, maybe Grujic, he's improved every player he's brought in. You know, his spending in the transfer market has been phenomenal. You know, Alisson, you know, Van Dijk, yeah, he spent big money on them, but he's recuperated that back tenfold. So, his recruitment has been absolutely fantastic. But he's brought a belief and a desire into a group of players. And I listened to Stan and Lenny and Chris talk about team spirit and how it's built. You know, the dressing room is a massively important part of any successful team. And these players play for each other. And you mentioned again, Jordan Henderson. Jordan, Adam Lallana, who's obviously left the football club, and James Milner play a vitally important part. And I'd probably put Virgil van Dijk in there as well, of keeping a harmony and a desire and a professionalism to the dressing room. I question some players at other clubs. Went on record questioning Paul Pogba. Is he the right man to have around a young dressing room, a Rashford, a Greenwood, a James? Is he that kind of influence? For me, he's not the kind of right influence I'd want. But I look at Jordan Henderson, Milner, who demand, in training, who demand when they're 1-0 down, who demand the last 10 minutes of the game when they're 1-0 up, that they get over the line, that they roll the sleeves up and the back's against the wall, they get their head on things, they hoof it, they kick it, they do the right things professionally to win football matches. And as much as Jürgen is a fantastic manager, he's built a fantastic squad, because he knows he can't be around the dressing room 100% of the time. He knows sometimes the players will get sick of his voice. We'll get sick of him hugging them. We'll get sick of him, pointing fingers or saying things. That a manager's not loved by every player. You need players who reiterate what the manager wants and what he desires. If you don't have that right blend in the dressing room, you won't get success. And the whole club's running like clockwork at the minute, from commercially, from the playing side of things. Michael Edwards is doing a fantastic job commercially. Billy Hogan's just stepped into the CEO role. He'll do fantastically well, having done really well commercially. More partners have come in, 17 new partners over the last 4 years. We're being able to move in the transfer market and spend 80 million. We're not worried about players leaving the football club, Barcelona, Real Madrid, United, whoever it may be, snatching players, although Wijnaldum might go to Barcelona as I'm speaking. But, we're a club now who's demanding from other clubs. So, we're in a fantastic position.
No, certainly are, and I agree with everything you've said. Now, obviously, you're famous in Ireland, especially for that goal. So I want to touch on, Ireland going forward. Obviously, Stephen Kenny has come in. He's got big games coming up in the Nations League against Bulgaria and Finland. How do you think he'll transition? Obviously, he's, a very good manager in the League of Ireland, but now this is, a big step up from. How do you think the players will react?
It was a massive step up. I was really wary of the way Ireland went about the process. I know it was under a different regime, under John Delaney. I thought his comments of giving Mick McCarthy the job, taking Ireland so far, and then Stephen Kenny taking over from him, was a bit of a weird scenario. I spoke to John actually about it, and he said he wanted to put some concrete foundations in where the fans and of Irish football were looking forward as if they had a plan. That's what they were going to do. Like England bringing in Southgate, moving a young manager into that role, was the way the FA did it. And he wanted to sort of replicate that and give Ireland a bit of a, people looking at it where they were moving forward and they were going to be happy with that. I thought it was a bit strange, because if Stephen Kenny had done really, really poorly with I think it was the 23s he'd done, and Mick McCarthy has done really, really well with the first team, how was that kind of transition then going to look? It was going to be very, very difficult. But as much as Mick done really, really well, Stephen Kenny did okay with the job he had in hand. I think the step up is massive, mate. I think international football is a strange one for managers. I had the privilege of playing under Jack, World Cup winner, had done so well, 88 and 90. Jack had this unbelievable respect off the players. We all wanted to play for him. There was no hint of wondering what he was doing, how he was doing it, and questioning anything that Jack did. Mick was the same, captain of Ireland, great playing career. We had total respect. Brian Kerr, he came in. I must stand up and say I actually wondered what he was doing, actually, how he got the job. What was a bit bewildered by the appointments, in all honesty. And then, when I hear, more up to date, Stephen's appointments, I thought it's a pretty big ask from a player who really has only managed, League of Ireland teams and a team in Scotland. So I'm always wary about sort of the pedigree, of a manager stepping into an international role. But he likes to play attractive football. It might be a refreshing change. It might be something that Ireland needs. Players can connect with what he wants to say. He's got a team that has had plenty of experience. He needs to find goals from somewhere. But he's got some good players coming through. It'll be interesting to see who he picks for the Bulgaria and the Finland game, because, as you know, Slovakia coming up is the all-important one.
You know, when in your playing days, when you were called into the squad, obviously when Brian Kerr got the appointment, did you almost feel, I don't know how to word this correctly, but with him stepping up from like the League of Ireland international job, did you look at him slightly different to when, obviously, when you played for Jack and then Mick McCarthy took over? You know, did you look at Brian Kerr differently? And I'm like, the question I have really is, will the players look at Stephen Kenny differently from, you know, when you had that experience with Brian Kerr?
Possibly. You know, footballers are, you know, they're made up differently now. I mean, I think Lenny will tell you, you know, managing a team now would be completely different to managing a team mid-90s, you know, up to the 2000s. Spoke to Ryan Giggs the other week, and he was talking about Wales, and he was talking about how you've got to approach players now, how you've got to talk to them. You know, I think gone are the days now. Maybe Lenny's still one of them who might lash something at a player, I don't know. But I think gone are them days, the hairdryer treatment, we called it, didn't we? I think them days are very numbered, if not extinct. I think, yeah, you know, when Brian come in, I knew he'd done the youngsters with Ireland. I knew he'd done, you know, particularly well with, I think, Damien Duff's team and Robbie Keane's team. But, you know, then to step up into an Irish team where you're in a dressing room full of, you know, players who play at the top level, players who have won things, playing for top clubs. You know, I think a manager who, you know, mightn't have a top pedigree, I think players might question that. Yeah, I do. I think they might think, you know, does he know what he's doing? Does he really know what it's like to challenge for honours, for Premier Leagues, for whatever it may be, for cups? You know, I don't think Brian's playing career is basking in glory, and I think sometimes players might question, you know, does he know what it takes to manage a team of elite sportsmen, elite players? You know, I found his training, you know, when I went in, you know, I'm sure this is going to make headlines, so I found his training very basic. I thought the way he went about managing the squad, quite basic, and I was, you know, a little bit bewildered to some of the things that he wanted to do, some of the things that he was trying to do, and I just questioned whether he was going to get the best out of an international squad.
And I believe you did have a run-in with them. Am I correct in saying that?
I didn't have a run-in with Brian at all. I mean, I know on Off the Ball, on the roadshow, which me and Stan were trying to get there, and unfortunately it was adverse weather, wasn't it? The planes turned around and we couldn't go. And then, you know, I'm listening, you know, to Brian talk about a situation that I know exactly where I was, and I knew exactly where I took the phone call, where he asked me to, you know, to come over and do a press conference with Roy Keane, put everything to bed, because me and Roy had clashed, Sunderland, Manchester United, put everything to bed and try and move forward. I was injured at the time. I asked the physio. I didn't think it was a good idea at the time anyway, but the physio wouldn't let me go. I had to get fit for Sunderland first and foremost, and I didn't have the time to get across to do a press conference. And I think Brian, might have used the word bullshit, I think was the words he might have used. I'll have to have a look at it. But I know where the phone call happened. I know where I was when I took the phone call, and I know that's what Brian wanted to happen. I didn't agree with him at the time. But I couldn't go because the club wouldn't let me. But I know that situation happened. Brian has a different recollection, obviously. But, you know, it was water under the bridge. I've got no problem with Brian. You know, Brian's Brian.
Oh, look, there's three sides to every story. There's yours, his, and the truth, so we'll never know. But anyway, right, last question I have for you. Are Ireland going to qualify for the Euro 21?
It's funny, really, because I think, you know, with the pandemic, I think we've seen all kinds of teams and players come back in different situations. You know, Paris Saint-Germain are qualified for the Champions League final. I think the pandemic has really helped them in reaching that final. You know, we've seen year on year out PSG winning the league by Christmas, not being able to keep up momentum, and then dropping out the Champions League, which they've wanted for so long. I think the fact that they've come back and it's been intense. They've been together in Lisbon. I think it really helped. They've had the easier side of the draw, obviously. And but I just think the fact that they've been involved in this bubble of intensity of football has really, really helped them. And they've played really, really well. You know, I've enjoyed watching them play. and I think it's helped them. What I'm trying to say is, I think, we just don't know. I think if we'd have played it without the pandemic, I don't think we would be favourites. But I think going into it, I just think there's become a level playing field. I think if everyone steps up to the challenge with Ireland, depends on how Stephen Kenny plays, which team he plays, which formation. We're going to have to obviously have a look at the two games, that they're going to come before that, Finland and Bulgaria. That'll give us some idea where the players are up to. But I just think going into a game of that intensity, I think under the current circumstances where everybody is with football, I think might be a bit of a leveller. And, I'd like to think that, the luck of the Irish is on our side. And I would just like to see for the fans and for the country that we qualify and we have something to look forward to, because as there's no better place when Ireland qualify for a major tournament than being in Ireland. And hopefully we do qualify and I'll be there.
No, I fully agree with you. And look, I'm hoping somebody steps up and scores a McAteer type goal, to get us qualification. But anyway, Jason, I know you've got plans, so I just want to thank you for your time, and we're shooting back over to the boys.